On transition. Hello, people. I don't know if there's anybody there, but we are recording this. There will be a VOD available if you are here. Wonderful. Welcome to Vampire Bites and into the Whoniverse, a Sagas beta test playtest TTRPG stream. I'm tongue-tied because I'm so excited about this. Sagas is a brand new system. It is still in beta and in playtest. We are helping Dennis out, who is the creator of Sagas, by playtesting it. We are playtesting it in the Doctor Who universe. And this lovely bunch of people have agreed to be submitted to my evil GM schemes. I mean, have agreed to help playtest. I am Vampire Bites, my channel, yada yada yada. So if you're here, you probably know me because you probably came from me posting a link somewhere, or you're already following me. But to introduce the rest of my folks, I'm going to go with by the names that are in our Roll20, which is what the audience can see right now. So, Joey Goblins, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I am Balix. I am a Centauran. And that's all we need to know at the moment.
Well, you're Joey Goblins. You're a player,
I'm
and
Joey
that's
Goblins.
But your character will be Balix, who will be a Sartaran, and we'll if you already know your character, let's go ahead and throw the characters in now as well. So, Flicka.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Flicka. Sure, we can throw in a character. I'm an Ood named Beta.
So Balix and Beta so far. Rachel?
Yep, Rachel. I am playing a human. Happy mechanic. And haven't really fleshed her out too much. She's just completely different than my usual grumpy medic.
So we have Balix, Beta, and Betty. Gustav, tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you have any character thoughts so far.
I'm Gus. I have no character thoughts so far. I was waiting to see what everybody else was doing, and I will throw something together, I guess. Yeah.
Not a problem at all.
Now is the character's name has to start with a B.
I think it has to. I think it has to.
At this point.
Because the three that have names already, it was not planned that way. It just happened.
Oh, it was not planned.
It was not planned.
But no, we're the B-listers.
Yeah, and we do have another player who will be joining us who is also active in the streaming community and in the TTRPG streaming community specifically. They couldn't make it tonight, so we'll be joining them hopefully next. They'll be joining us hopefully next week, so we'll introduce them then. Little bit more about Sagas. Sagas is a setting and genre agnostic system. SAGAS. And the reason I love it so much is you literally can plug any system into it and use not system, but you can throw any setting or genre at it and just use it. During the early play tests I was involved in, we had a group called Oops All GMs, where there were 4 of us, and we took turns being the GM each week with bringing our own setting and genre into the game, but the same characters transition throughout with an overarching storyline underneath the whole thing. And it was just a blast. It was so much fun. I loved that game. So my session where I was running as a GM was in the Whoniverse. It was kind of a pre-play test for this one to see how this goes. We will be starting at level 1 here. Depending on how things go, we may level faster than the system default. We may level with the system default, or we may level slower, depending on how balanced things feel and how much actual playtesting we get out of it. You can get your own copy of Sagas over on DriveThruRPG, totally free. go support Dennis with by boosting his numbers. You don't have to give him any money or anything. It's just get a copy for free. It will be updated at the end of this month to version 0.7. Right now we're using 0.6, and we'll be getting the new version when it comes out, and maybe upgrading to it depending on how much character shifting there is. I know from 5 to 6, 0.5 to 0.6, there was a bigger shift in character design. So if it's similar with 0.7, I don't think I want to do the shift at that time.
There's at least a few things, because I have 6.1 from the Pokemon game that I ran, and there was some things that he manually went over during the game. So
yeah, so I know one of the things from 7. Actually, I think it comes out. I think it starts in 6.2, but one of the things that we will be incorporating early that's not in our rule book is that combos don't cost an action, but we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, this is our session 0, so let's learn a little bit more about each other as players and not worry about the characters or the system yet, and let's just talk about what we expect out of a game, what we expect people to not do. So we can cover our lines and veils, and I'm kind of stalling and mumbling and stumbling right now because I'm opening a Google Doc for us to share. And I can't type and talk very well at the same time. So, Sagas.
Alternating syllables and key punches.
Whoniverse.
Especially when you're saying one thing and typing something else.
Exactly.
And then you end up typing what you were saying.
I did that with my mom. I was having a conversation with her and she started typing what I was saying instead of what she was trying to text.
Okay. I'm gonna go kind of around the table again, and we'll go in reverse order this time. Gustav, do you have any particular lines or veils that you would like to discuss with the group? Or Gus?
Not in particular.
Sorry. Not in particular?
Gus is fine. Gustav's fine. Doesn't
Okay.
matter. Not that's going to pop up in a Doctor Who universe, I don't think. So.
Yes, this is not going to be the Torchwood spin-off. If anything, it might lean more towards Sarah Jane Adventures. That said, my stream is an adult stream. It does have a content warning when you first log into the stream. So, violence and whatnot. You guys are not playing the Doctor. You guys are allowed to have guns. There is a player who will be playing a Sontaran. And I don't think Balix and Strax are the same. So I don't think Balix is going to be the wet nurse that's just a foul-mouthed, rude person. They probably are actually going to use a gun. We are expecting combat, although, you know, it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement. Yeah, we also have an Ood, so, you know. But
I have a funny feeling Betty's going to be standing in front of Beta more than a few times, just going, "Don't hit the Ood."
Okay. Rachel, do you have any particular lines or veils that you need to?
Again, I don't see us hitting those. I'm comfortable with most things of a violent and or sexual nature, as long as the players are respectful of each other. We can go to some really dark places, and I'm chill. Yeah, no, pretty comfortable dealing with, especially if it's part of character development. I'm cozy. Most of my veils are nothing any of us are interested in, and illegal, so we're good.
Flicka?
But I really enjoy, I don't mind there being combat and violence at all, as long as it is the smaller part and the storytelling and character development is the major focus. That's usually my happy spot.
Yeah, I have no problems.
Okay.
I can't imagine anything in a Doctor Who game that would be too much for me.
Yeah.
And Joey.
If you could define veils,
Sure.
I get the lines.
Well, just because we have a potential audience, I will I will go through what both of them are. Lines are hard lines. Do not bring this up, period. This is something that we don't want to do in this game whatsoever. Veils are, this is a touchy subject. I'm okay with the mention of it, but let's not go into detail. Let's do a fade to black. Let's toss a veil over it so nobody sees it in detail.
Oh, okay. None. No, I think.
For example, if this were a Torchwood game instead, we could draw a hard line at graphical depictions of sexual encounters. You know, that could be a hard line.
Sure.
Because it sounds like, except for in a few cases, it sounds like it might be a line anyway. I know that in initially discussing playing Doctor Who, it was kind of that was discussed as a we don't want to play a Torchwood game where everybody's having sex all the time. So we can consider explicit sexual descriptions a line for the game as a whole. As a veil, it could be, let's just, instead of saying it's a hard line, we'll say the descriptions are a hard line. Sexual encounters themselves should be veiled. As an example.
The hardest I go is cloning myself. But that's...
No, I liked what we did in one role-playing game. We were playing Fae, Changelings, and yes, fun times happen. And how that worked is the 2 players or more said, fun times are happening. That means we get a coffee break. Enough said.
Yeah. So, we can run with general veils for sexual encounters. Did you have anything in particular, Joey?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't have anything.
I think all of us would be completely supportive and comfortable if something comes up we weren't expecting to have an issue with. Any of us can say, actually,
yes.
Can we fade to black? Or can we back up 2 to 3 seconds and not?
Oh, it's not showing up on Roll20 right now. Let me make that change. Give me a second. Settings. Where's... No, this one, not settings. This one. There. Now, down in the lower right-hand corner of your Roll20 screen, you should have a little card deck.
Yes.
That is the safety deck. There are 3 cards. A keep going. A stop. Oh, I should pick instead of... Anyway.
Green is, yay, this is awesome. Carry on.
There
Red. Nope, stop. Yellow. Whoa, let's take a minute.
So,
to discuss
for the most part, the big stop is going to be our primary card that hopefully we never have to see, but it's available if you need to use it. Don't feel bad about using it. It just calls the current situation to a halt. We fade to black immediately on that, verbally on that situation. You don't need an excuse. You don't need to explain yourself. You may if you want to. And you may do so either in the stream, in the stream chat, or over in the Discord chat at your own preference, or not at all, as I said. You know, there's no explanation required. The only caveat to that is I would like to know, so that we can add it to our document, specifically what caused the stop. I don't need to go into the backstory of why or anything like that, and that's totally up to you. But just so that we can add it to the document, the what caused it is somewhat important there. And if you're not comfortable with that, that's okay. But that might mean it may come up again, and you might have to throw the stop again. So it's still up to you. The keep going can be used as a, yes, I really like this. I want more of this in the game, and you can put it out there as a hopefully I'll see it and make the connection to go make a note in our document. The slowdown can be used as a veil card. It's like, this is getting a little too detailed for me. Can we put a curtain on it? So that's what the purpose of those 3 cards are in my games, is hard stop for the red X, yellow slowdown is put a veil on it, cover it up, let's just move on, and then keep going is, yeah, let's get into it. So, and those are available for anybody. You can choose from, you should be able to choose from the deck. That should be the default setting. I haven't checked it, so no
I'm
discard
actually on a
pile.
different map than you're showing.
Did I not drag you over here?
Oh. Oh, okay.
Ah, yay!
I'm over here. Yeah.
Oh, hey,
This is
Craig.
new for me too.
I was like, who's the doctor in that situation on the screen? I don't know. I saw an older
yeah.
gentleman.
Yeah, that I'll get to that other map in a minute. That's just a demo map to highlight some of the game system settings that we'll be going through. But anyway, so yeah, you should be able to draw from the deck at any time, choose from the deck specifically, so that you can see what card you're pulling, so that you don't accidentally pull a keep going when you meant to pull a stop, because that would be bad.
I can pick them. No, I can pick them.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. So that's what the safety deck is for. If something comes up that you haven't thought of right now that's not going into the document, we can pull that card, and we'll be all set, and we can add it to the document after the fact. And as Craig Horst, one of our viewers, pointed out, a private DM to me to let me know what it was that triggered it. I can add it to the document, or I can just make note of it. So yeah, any which way, the X alone is enough. And if it's really sudden, and you're on camera, you can just do an X. But I think a card is going to be more visible for me, because I have to look down at the bottom of my monitor to see y'all, and an X is going to go right out there in the middle of the board. So for me, I think the X is going to be our best bet, the X card. But if you anyway, just a verbal stop is still completely adequate. Consent is key. It is not just sexy, it is mandatory. But back to our document. Where was I? Okay. So I didn't cover my lines and veils. So I will say that ground rules, sexual encounters are veils. I also have a personal sitting rule when I am a GM that anyone who is openly bigoted due to human racial characteristics, speciesism is a part of Doctor Who, and that will still happen, and that's not a line or a veil for me. But specifically racism, homophobia, transphobia, other acts of violence, etc., whether verbal, mental, emotional, or physical, against children under 13, against minority groups like indigenous persons, black people, queer people, etc. The only time that will ever come up in a game is if that is a villain who you are allowed to kill with impunity.
So,
And you are expected to.
to go ape shit.
Yeah. If you encounter somebody who is being a sexual bigot or a racial bigot, yeah, just pull out your gun and shoot them. It's okay. That's what they're there for. Just like punching Nazis. It's just
like
something
real
you're
life.
allowed to do.
Yeah, it's very cool.
In other words, I don't plan on introducing it in my game, but if they do show up in my game, there is no consequence for dealing with it.
Excellent. Penny might actually attack somebody. She'll fail because of how I built her, she'll miss every time, break everything of theirs in the room. But you know, it'll still feel good.
Typing again. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves.
So yeah, this reminds me a little bit of a game I was playing, a live-action role-playing game in Charlottesville, before, during, and after the March of August. I think it was 13th was our counter protest, August 2017. And the GMs came forward and said, okay, guys, I know all of you are really hot to punch Nazis right now, but we are not going to role play them. So you get to do that in your downtime. We are not doing that in game because we don't want to represent that. I was like, valid.
I can't believe it was 2017 because.
I don't know, it feels like yesterday almost.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
6
So-
years ago, wow.
Gus, as feedback, the four of us all live in the same city, and August 2017 was a very dark month, and its anniversary was just a couple weeks ago. There was an alt-right rally here in Charlottesville, Virginia, and there was one death directly connected to it, and then some cops died in a helicopter crash or something like that. That's tangentially related to it, but
it was the reason they were in the air, but it has been presented as an accidental.
yeah, it's tangentially related plus ACAP, so whatever. Sorry, but there was one fatality that was very intentional, and it happened right in the middle of downtown.
It happened a quarter of a block from where I was standing.
Yeah.
I still jump when I hear a car rev.
For the first 2 years, I couldn't walk down that street without my heart literally stopping when I tried to cross that street. So it's a real thing around here. Unfortunately, most things have got to go back to.
On a more hopeful note, we sent them running. We did,
Yeah.
and it was during our celebratory march, because we blocked them from aggressively marching into a community that was primarily people of color. We stopped them from doing that, and
But before we get too political, we should get back to game stuff.
We got off on game stuff that will have nothing to do with ugly people.
Yeah. As Craghorst pointed out something that a couple other people have mentioned to me. When I say Whoniverse, I am talking about one thing and one thing only, and that is Doctor Who. A lot of people don't think of the Doctor in Doctor Who as being doctors when associated with the Whoniverse, but they think of a Dr. Seuss, the Who's Whoniverse.
I didn't even think of that.
And this is Sagas. We might do a throwaway episode on Dr. Seuss.
I mean, if we're running during Christmas, we absolutely should do a Grinch episode. Besides, there's speculation that Whoville is actually Charlottesville. It's somebody I am glad I got to break up with. Introduced me to that idea.
No,
So take it with a big
no.
grain of salt.
It's no. Doctor Who.
Well, you don't want the TARDIS landing on the top of Horton's head.
I have a T-shirt actually with Horton holding a dandelion fluff, or similar to whatever the truffula fluff, whatever it is in Horton Who's a Who, and the TARDIS is instead of a speck of dust on that fluff. I do have that T-shirt, but it's a white T-shirt, and I don't wear white, so I don't wear it very often. I was gonna look for it to wear it tonight, but I didn't. Anyway, so yeah, ground rules: sexual encounters are veils. Bigotry towards any real world or real world coded Black, Indigenous, persons of color, queer, etc. is a hard line. Now, from there, we will move on to joys and expectations, or happy spots expectations. What brings you joy in a TTRPG? Joey.
I do enjoy the mechanics of combat, and I know that's, maybe not what everybody's expecting. I enjoy the story, but mainly I like world building, and I don't know too much about Doctor Who, so I'm actually kind of, just interested in that. Like I've watched Torchwood, I've watched some Doctor Who, but I don't retain.
To understand, to see if I properly understand what you mean by mechanics of combat, you're looking for tactical, or are you talking about the dice?
Yeah. The tactical I enjoy.
Okay.
The camaraderie.
The team effort in a moment of crisis. I actually, not
even if it's
what
not
I would describe as my happy place, but I totally see what you're going for. I like it.
And Flicka?
Definitely agree with all that. I also love a good creative use of something. I love doing something that's surprising or interesting, doing something that no one's ever thought of before. That always makes me feel smart and good.
Sagas is fantastic for that. It does have, built into the rules itself, it has a make your own. As we did a little bit of background for both Ood Beta and for Balix, I did a bunch of potential choices that could be kind of a supplement to the core book, specifically around Sontarans and around Ood. I think for Betty, I think we just used straight out of the book stuff. But there is, when I was running this in the Oops All GMs campaign over on Dennis's YouTube channel, we did a lot of stuff. I created Cybermen, Cybermats, Cybermites, something special that if you watched it, you know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you because it'll be a surprise when you get there. But I haven't done Daleks yet, so we will not run into Daleks in the first episode. I can guarantee that because I won't have them ready yet. But I will be creating my own monsters and using the system to build them. I will be creating my own equipment to throw into the world. I have created a vortex manipulator and the skill to use it. So the system is very good for that. Plus, as far as specifically creative uses goes, the system itself is also built around creative uses of what's on your character sheet. You have, in Sagas, when you have a check, it's the GM, unless the GM is specifically saying something like a perception type check or an avoid check or an attack check, right? There are some checks that are somewhat more specific that are non-situational. But even those, you can work your character sheet into it. But most checks are completely situational. You say what you want to do, and I say, that sounds like a check to me. And you look at your character sheet to determine what on your sheet can help or hinder that check and apply that. So Sagas is really big on creative usages. If you can convince me that this detail on your sheet matches what you're trying to do, okay, we'll do it. Let's get creative up in here. So I do
Rules
love that.
layer it.
Well, let's not go that far. One of the people that I used to game with a long time ago, we're no longer friends for reasons not related to TTRPGs, but he was a fantastic rules lawyer. Sometimes I hated gaming with him. I hated GMing him, but I loved playing when he was the GM because he knew his shit. And he did like rules lawyering, so he would allow it to some degree. I like it a little less, so I will allow it to a small degree until I'm just like, you're not convincing me, just stop.
Oh yeah, when I say it, it's
Yeah.
I throw this really made up bullshit at you to try and say, why I should roll this way, and then it's up to you.
Um, okay, so creative use. Rachel, you had already mentioned something, but I didn't write it down because I wasn't in that part of the document yet. You like
Oh, good.
RP, I remember.
Yeah, definitely like the character development, especially as a group coming together. And I get like was saying, being creative. We had a whole crew pantsed a skeleton to stop them from running away with magic. It just finding new and interesting ways to do things. And yes, sometimes it makes the GM's head hurt, or we go totally left field and in our own direction. It can be a lot of fun to just we're having an adventure. We're gonna go way over here. It'll be great. And as far as rules lawyering, I don't mind people going, hey, I'm not sure that's with the rules, but if what we're doing makes for smooth storytelling and a good time, I tend towards let it slide, let it flow. Story is king.
I do tend towards a rule of cool as well. I am so there's very few rules in sagas as it is, but I am certainly willing to bend with and adjust the rules as necessary for the story or the sake of, yeah, you know what, that just sounds really cool. And sometimes they'll say let's house rule it, and sometimes they'll say this time. The difference being, if I say this time, it means it was cool as a unique feature. Let's not do it all the time. If I say, yeah, let's house rule that, then it just becomes a standard for our system, for our game. So that's kind of there. But story is king is a great deal. And Gus, what do you got to add to this group? What do you
guys have pretty much
expect and
covered the whole
love?
spectrum. So, um, as long as a game doesn't like shift all the way to one direction or the other and stay there for forever,
Mhm.
I'm good. So,
Okay.
Variety.
I,
Story is king, variety is the spice of life.
I will read back what I have in our document so far because I kind of shorthanded some of these things. Lines and veils, ground rules, sexual encounters or veils, bigotry towards any real world or real world coded, BIPOC, queer, etc. Hard line. Gus, nothing off the top of the head. Rachel, as long as everything is player consensual. Flicka, same. Joey, about the same. Happy Spot's expectations. Joey, mechanics of combat like tactical combat, world building, and RP. Flicka, same, plus creative usages of systems. Rachel, RP, combat a bit lighter maybe, team building, character development, story is king. Gus, yes, all of the above, balance is crucial. Did I capture everybody's intentions?
For me, absolutely.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Since I'm rewording things as I go, I do like to make sure that I am properly understanding what you're trying to get across. And to me, that's one way of doing it, is to write it in my own words to make sure that I am understanding when you read it back. So this document will be shared in our Discord in the library as a link to the edit page. So you will be able to come in and edit this next to your own name on your own if you come up with anything you want to add. Let's do a little bit of talking about the world and world building to get started. So as I had mentioned, this is a show up if you can game. It's a one-shot game, but they're stringed together. If you get tired of a character, retire it, bring a new one in. If you get really attached to a character, hold on to it the whole time. There will be connectors between the one-shots. It will not be just a series of one-shots. There will be connectors but not kind. I don't expect, and I'm not currently planning a series-wide arc or anything, like RTD loved to do. Actually, come to think of it, Moffat did too. Um, but that's not to say that that won't end up developing as a course of your own actions, or your own character development can turn into a campaign style over arc about things. So it's one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to set it up that way as a series of one shots is I've tried running a lot of different games, and it's scheduling in TTRPGs is next to impossible. And I personally have ADHD with rejection sensitive dysphoria, so even though it's not a direct reflection on me if somebody bails out, it is from my own brain's perspective. So I would take
feels like it.
I would take it very personally when somebody would cancel, especially if they canceled last minute. I set this game up in a way that I don't care about that, so it's not going to affect me. The only way it's going to affect me is if enough people drop that we have to cancel. But I'm willing to run this session, any given session, with just one character. You can be the star of a session if you're the only character, that's the only player that shows up. That's perfectly fine with me. So that's why I designed it this way, so that I don't have to worry about who is going to show up and who's not going to show up. I'm going to have a story ready, and the only times that will be, it's not an issue. The only times it'll be a thing will be if a given story is supposed to involve a certain character's background and backstory, and they're not there. That'll be very upsetting. But otherwise, we should be fine. So, and to the audience, this is an open game. Please ask me directly if you would like a seat at the table, either as a guest appearance, like just one episode, or as a regular recurring appearance. We are, even though we have 4 players right now, we have a 5th player who couldn't make it tonight. I'm willing to stream with 6. And if we get more than 6 players, we can work out a rotation, or we can do guest appearances. I have no problem with that. The more the merrier. We're not sailing with the Doctor in the TARDIS. We're just in the universe of the Doctor. And I still have to figure out exactly what the mechanic is to get you from one place to another without a TARDIS. Or maybe I'll give you a TARDIS that doesn't work properly. We don't have a Time Lord yet, so I don't think you're going to get an actual TARDIS.
We're introducing our device with which we get from point A to point X by accident. But we'll go over that as we discuss our characters coming together. I'm gonna dip for just a second to open up here.
Okay.
And I'll be right back.
Okay.
Our TARDIS has an autopilot. It's just one button. We have no idea where it's going.
Nope. Yep. That's if you get a TARDIS, that's going to be the gist of it. It's going to be purely a MacGuffin. Anyway. So
basically the show.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So those are my expectations from this campaign, is that you have fun, and that I am able to bring you a good role-playing experience, and that you can bring me a good role-playing experience in the world of Doctor Who, using the Saga's rule set. Those are my only expectations at this point. So let's talk about your world. And we can talk a little bit about character ideas while we're at it. And since Gus doesn't have anything yet, or is still plotting and planning in their brain, we'll go ahead and start with Balix. So, what do you already have? We already know Balix is Santaran, which Sontarans are agender. They're a clone race. They don't have a gender. They are a warlike race in general. Though there are specimens of Sontarans that are toned down from their warlike tendencies physically, but not necessarily verbally. AKA Strax from the Paternoster gang. Tell us a little bit about Balix.
Well, I don't have too much.
Mhm.
But they are everything. You know, they're just a normal Sontaran. Blue eyes, possibly classic green skin. The cutest tooth gap you've ever seen. And it's, I mean, what can I say? We're beautiful. But that's about it at the moment.
Okay, so don't have any
Yeah.
particular character concept. You're a
Not really.
you're probably a grunt.
I'm a clone.
Yeah, well, so even in the clone society, you still have ranks because they are a soldiering system. So you do still have war leaders, generals, field commanders, etc. Given that we're all starting at level 1, you are most likely just a standard grunt, a default Sontaran. You may not even have a real solid personality yet. That may just be something that you develop over time. But we should figure out why you're not with the Sontaran fleet right now. Why are you separated and traveling with others? We won't worry about who the others are just yet. But why or how did you get removed from the Sontaran Empire?
Oh. Oh my goodness.
I will
What
let you
a-
think on that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it doesn't matter if you don't really know enough Doctor Who to put it into Who terms. Just thinking about it, you're a Roman legionnaire, bottom of the line soldier in the Roman army that has been cast out and is now living in Russia.
Okay.
Why?
The gears are turning.
Yep.
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll
Yeah.
let you think on that. We'll come back. Flicka, let's talk about Beta, the Ood.
So, I was thinking that throughout like the history of the Ood,
Mhm.
every once in a while there has been like this like big like psychic pulse, and that sometimes everyone feels it, and sometimes just like one Ood feels it, but every once in a while it happens. And Beta felt it. He was the only one who felt the pulse this time around, and they're off into the universe because it happened throughout of all time and space. It makes sense that those would be the travels he would go on. You know, if he senses it in multiple times at different places, then he can like triangulate maybe an origin or something. That's kind of his long-term goal. But right now it's just to kind of see if they can find that connection again, even just for a moment, and then find it again until they can figure it out.
Okay. So are you in the Whoniverse we have hindbrain oods and mechanical sphere translator sphere
I'm
oods.
a natural Ood.
Natural Ood?
So I got the fleshy hindbrain in my hand. I didn't want to go with the whole servant thing. That I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna touch that. So I figured I happened in the Ood timeline beyond that. That's in my past. My people are past servitude. We are free, natural Ood.
Okay. So we've got why you're out and about on your own or with the group. We have established a little bit. So let's discuss a little bit of personality if you have anything yet.
I'm thinking so definitely pacifist. I think one of their like maybe the psychic whatever that they felt it felt good, right? Like it felt happy or nice. So they're probably like, oh, if I do nice things, like if I'm a good person, so there's probably a certain like that felt good, so I'm gonna try and be helpful. I'm gonna try and so like as he goes on adventures, he's looking for ways to kind of fulfill that goodness, maybe. So like there's always he's looking for opportunities to be good, whatever that means for his psychic alien mind versus normal humanness.
Right? Okay.
More species.
So Betty, you're playing a bog standard human?
Yes, I am. Betty is a standard issue human from Earth. Very creative, very push the envelope of technology. Which
what time zone on Earth? And I don't mean Eastern, Pacific, European. I mean era.
No,
what era?
About now, maybe in 10 years, depending on what we want to think about the technology she's able to accidentally create. This does also, my character idea came out of wouldn't it be funny if a human from Earth built what they intended to be a time machine, and instead it spat them out at a random time in a random place in the universe and then wouldn't start again. And she makes friends, everybody pulls together to fix the machine enough to start getting somewhere, but it may not go where we want it to. And then that device, that machine she created, becomes everyone's home base and something that we pilot as a collective. Not something we have to do, but an idea. But yeah, somehow she ended up in a far-flung part of the universe from Earth. And originally her goal is to get home, but it's very distractible out here. So that becomes less and less of a goal, as, you know, she'd be happy if we ended up back there for 5 minutes, but it's not the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tends to be a little more of the happy-go-lucky, live and let live kind. If in combat, she tends to just stand between somebody less operational than herself and be in the way. If she's trying to fix something or do something during combat, she'll probably just turn her back and shrug off everything she can. So yeah, a genius mechanic, but a bit of a physical klutz. She can swing a weapon, but she's more likely going to break the jug to the left. So.
Okay. And now, Gus, we're rolling around to you. Do you have any ideas or thoughts yet?
Yeah, I threw together a Silurian medic. Well, we've been doing this.
Awesome. Now, there are multiple types of Silurians.
Is there? Because I literally just opened up the wiki for.
Yeah. So, the primary type is the type featured in New Who, which is the type the 11th Doctor encountered when they were digging the drill, and they are a mix of they have a warrior caste, they have a science caste, they have a civilian caste. The civilian caste primarily sleeps during most of the eras that Doctor Who visits, at least. But so for the audience, Silurians ruled the Earth long before Homo sapiens existed. They roamed the world with the dinosaurs. When the coming dinosaur apocalypse was detected with their advanced science, they moved underground and put themselves to sleep for eons. They have been accidentally woken up a few times in the show's history, and we may encounter them in our game. In fact, we have one here who is from the science cast, specifically a medic. I like it.
Actually, the not being with their people anymore thing, I was thinking going with being from the warrior caste and not wanting to be a warrior. Thus the medic thing and the not being with their people thing.
Okay, so similar to Madame Vastra, who was a warrior caste, and rejected that and became a private investigator, who is Madame Vastra is the source of inspiration for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to have written Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, that was the spin-off that
Okay.
needed to happen.
Right?
That never did.
Okay, so former Warrior Cast. Is there any particular event that woke you up that let you get out of it?
I'm not sure.
From any canon or anything in particular, or just it happened at one point?
Just
it
gonna go
happened.
with it happened at one point
Okay.
because at the moment
Yep.
I don't know the older Doctor Who stuff for when they were out and about, and there wasn't in the newer series. They've only showed up a few times. So.
Yeah.
Be something you
Seems-
realize as we develop the character in play, and you can fill us
Yeah.
in or not as you see fit.
Seeing some of these pictures of the old Silurians, holy crap! Though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it looks like a rubber fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in addition to the casts, there are also, because the old Who. So prior to Russell T Davies, during the, I think it was third series, prior to Russell T Davies declaring a canon, Doctor Who did not have a canon. It only had fanon. And Classic Who is full of retcons, but they're not retcons because there's no canon. It's full of just things that don't actually jive with each other. There's a word that I'm completely blanking on, but it's full of plot holes and fallacy. The word inconsistencies. That's still not the word I want, but it works. It's full of inconsistencies, and so because of the inconsistencies of Classic Who, there are two species of Silurians: the water ones, the fish ones, and the earth lizards. So you are one of the earth lizard Silurians.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have, for world building, let's go back to Balix. Have you thought about why you're not with the Sontaran Empire anymore?
You know, I was hoping you wouldn't come back to me so fast.
You got all caught up in everybody else's stories that you haven't had
Yeah,
enough time to think
can't
about it.
listen and think. Yeah, I can't.
That's
it's
fine.
so hard.
We can, you can develop that on your own time, and we'll have it ready for story when we're ready.
That sounds great.
Yep. So we have a Sontaran who's out on their own, probably fairly fresh and still very imprintable, and developing their own personality. We have an Ood who has received a kind psychic pulse calling him to a life of travel. He is a natural Ood who is free. He is a pacifist who is kind, helpful, and good. We have Betty, a human mechanic from the near future Earth, who had an accidental one-button TARDIS light type device that sent them off, flinging off into the vast Whoniverse. And that one button is going to be I think I'm just going to go with it. It is currently in a working but not programmable state.
So, random shuffle. You hit the button and then you find out where you ended up.
Yep.
I am so cool with that.
You have the thing from Sliders.
Yeah,
Yep.
basically.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah, pretty much.
From
Roulette.
Sliders?
Yeah. And you prefer to, as far as Betty's personality goes, you prefer to avoid combat by ignoring it if possible. If you can't ignore it and it gets in your way, you'll try to do something about it.
I'll just hug them until they decide to stop.
And
And
then,
I'm big enough to do that to most things.
and then we have a Silurian medic who was in the warrior cast, but after being awakened at some point in their history, rejected the warrior life and fled and trained to become a medic and lived a life of secrecy on Earth until somehow we meet up with this group. Probably,
I have an idea. If they were secret on Earth, maybe they and Betty were friends and they came along on this maiden voyage and they ended up stranded together. Isn't
does that work for you guys?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Of course.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will also say that I think unless anybody wants to be a first introduction to the group during a session, I think we will also say that you've pushed the button a few times. You've collected this whole group, and wherever we start our first session is where we'll start with everybody already knowing each other. I will have to get, I want buy-in from each of you and buy-in from Janine and anybody else that may end up joining between now and then, to make sure, if you would prefer a in-character introduction to the group as you are a stranger, an NPC, from the party's point of view, you're an NPC until you get integrated into the party. That is perfectly acceptable as well. So, but I think it would be easiest to have pre-collected everybody and everybody knows each other.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty good with characters knowing each other beforehand, because otherwise you have those 3 episodes where you're like, why am I with you again?
why do I trust you?
Yeah.
I don't want to share my
trust
things with you
after
because I
3
don't know
seconds
you.
and it feels forced. Yeah, no, we can. Our first episode, game, could be we've all gathered and we decide as a group to hit that button again, and then we all end up in the same spot with a companiative nature towards each other already established.
Oh, I need to import those decks. I have
delayed.
You're delayed?
Sorry, I'd like delayed like title cards, and that would be my introduction. You know, it's we're already in the episode. We know what's going on. We're all friends, and then maybe like a thing, a nice background story happening.
Flashback.
A little flashback, a little minuscule flashback that says, "This is who I am."
Yeah.
And that'd be great.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have it in this game yet. I need to import it over into this game somehow. But I do have a random table to generate. When you hit that button, I will hit a button in Roll20 that will determine where you end up.
Oh, this is excellent.
Yeah, this is intended to be a random game, and I just want to have a lot of fun with it.
Do we all get to contribute ideas?
I am absolutely open to that. We can talk about some ideas here, and then you can also add in more ideas as you have them. I need to find the right tab again, so hold on a second. Okay.
Boy, Pinterest really doesn't like trying to look up Silurians.
That's okay. Try looking up, no, I can't think of it now. I forget what it is. But there's a completely innocuous phrase that if you search it on Facebook, it tries reporting you for certain activities that are very illegal involving certain people that are not 18 yet. It's a completely
I'm gonna go ahead and
innocent
just
search.
not type whatever that is into a search.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
In fact, I don't even need to know what it is.
Yeah,
So-
but it's a completely innocuous, innocent term, but it's abbreviation. It's 2-letter abbreviation. I don't think it's CP like Cyberpunk, but it's something like that. That's very nasty, bad, and it's
Makes them be extra vigilant all of a sudden.
yeah, because apparently these people use that as a code word or something. Or Facebook thinks they do. Whether it actually happens or not, I have no idea. But yeah,
Facebook might not either, but that I don't
that's
care
fair.
much about what they use as code words
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah.
Possible random landing point. So I'm going to put this into our documents. I already have a table. I just don't have it in front of me. That has a bunch of stuff, and I can add to that table as much as you want. So start throwing out some ideas. Gus, you seem to have some ideas already. And I'm not going to attribute these to anybody. I'm just going to put a list, so it's easier to import into my spreadsheet. Do you have any ideas for landing spots for your pseudo TARDIS?
See, I have this thing when somebody asks me a question, my brain goes completely empty.
That's okay.
So no, I'm sure I will think of some, but right now,
It will be
nothing.
It will be in the document, which we will share, and you can edit it at any time when
That
you have
happens
an
to me
idea.
a lot. I had thoughts, I had ideas, but not anymore.
If I can find my,
It's like a physical block goes up.
Boom. That's what it was like for me taking tests in school. I knew the thing until the question came up, and then it was gone.
I don't think I can get to my table without going into the game.
We can sort it. We won't need.
Yeah, I'll do it later. Well, I was gonna pre-populate the the document with what I already have, so that we don't need duplicates or anything. But I don't think I can get into that table without loading up a second game, and that can mess with the current game. So I don't want to do that.
All good. It could be sorted over the next week.
Yep. Okay. So that covers a lot of the basics. We're not quite at 90 minutes in, but this is a good breaking point. If anybody needs to use the facilities or ingest some nicotine or get stretch, etc., we will take a 10-minute break, we'll say, and then come back and we can discuss more in depth about the sagas set, the rule set, and stuff like that. I'm going to leave the music running, but I will turn our mics off. I'm going to basically deafen everybody. So when you become undeafened, that's when we're going back. I would leave the mics live because I know a lot of TTRPG groups do leave the mics hot during in between. But until this group gets to know each other better, I think for the downtime, for the break time, I will turn the mics off.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
I'll be back.
Yep. Let me switch over to break mode. There we go. Break mode is started. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a good break, got some stretching, got a glass of something to drink, maybe even a bite to eat. And we are ready to get into a little bit more in-depth world building and character development and rule set discussions. So, I did think of something on the break. Sagas, as has been mentioned many times, is setting and genre agnostic. That means a Sagas game can be anything. And the 10th Doctor once said that all the stories are true, except Nadi. Nadi's not true. So that means that's just what he said. Or was it the 11th?
Okay, I'll take it.
I think it was 10. Now I'm going to have to research that. Dang it. Anyway, all the stories are true. Right? And that has been a concept brought up multiple times in Doctor Who. The Doctor himself, or themself now, the Doctor themself has been Merlin and other historical features and characters throughout our own world's history. The very word Doctor, he didn't call himself the Doctor because Earth people had a word for doctor and he wanted to be a healer. No, he called himself the Doctor as a promise. And other cultures, as they met the Doctor, learned that word and brought it to mean a healer, a helper, according to canon. According to the Doctor and other characters in the Doctor's life, at least. How true it is, well, rule number 1, the Doctor lies, sweetie. Rule number 2, so does the Doctor's friend. So do the Doctor's friends. Excuse me. But given that this system is super flexible, and that the Whoniverse itself is also super flexible, we don't need to limit our landing choices, our random table of landing choices, to the science fiction genre and setting. Obviously, there's an old Western that's from back in Classic Who, and there was even a little bit of that in New Who, right? We had the sheriff from outer space. He was there to kill the Doctor, except it wasn't the Doctor, it was a Doctor, and yada yada yada. But spoilers. So Wild West is a potential setting. The table doesn't even need to be Earth heavy, although I think for our own benefits and our own frame of reference, it probably should be Earth heavy. But it doesn't need to be. Because of the system and because the Doctor has said many times, or the Doctor Who as a series has said many times that all the stories are true, we can set this in, like we had discussed early in the stream, in the Dr. Seuss Whoniverse, right? We can land in places that wouldn't normally be a typical Doctor Who setting, because both the system and the universe we're building from allow for that. So don't feel obligated to restrict yourself when having ideas for who and what the landing zone that you want to potentially play in is. I've been personally playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 lately. I know Adam has as well. Somebody has
No,
as well.
you can call me Adam.
Okay.
You can call me Adam. Yeah, I don't mind that at all.
I've been very careful this whole time not to say it, just in case, because your online, your stream name and everything else is Joey.
Oh,
So.
don't worry. If you looked it up on Discord, it says "Hi, I'm Adam."
Oh, okay.
On my or excuse me, on my Steam.
Okay.
So no worries. I love it.
Okay. Anyways, so we both independently. We haven't been playing together, but independently, a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. As is most of the world right now, I think.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I have some purchases to make.
Since you're holding out on those purchases anyway, it might be easier to, or it might take just as long to wait for the Xbox version to come out.
I don't have an Xbox.
Oh,
I have a PlayStation 4.
I think it's available for PlayStation 4, or is it 5
It
only?
should
Do you
be
know?
soon. It should be soon. I mean, I'll probably get it for whatever system other people I know, like you, and
Well,
other
It's
people.
cross-system compatible. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And
like,
it has cross-save.
PlayStation then.
And it has cross-save, so if you buy it on 2 platforms, why would anybody buy it on 2 platforms? That's so stupid. But it has it has cross-play compatibility, so you can pick up a save from one system and take it over to another system.
I mean, that's awesome if one felt inclined to support them that much. But no, good thought. Anyway,
Anyways,
but
I
no.
will talk to you about that after. But
We
so
could get
so
very off track.
setting a single session potentially in a more D&D style universe with something that looks like magic is certainly within the realm of possibilities, and certainly within the possibility of sagas as a rule set. So don't feel limited to science fiction, futurism, or historical. Those 3 are the typical bread and butter of the Doctor Who universe. So I do anticipate the table to be heavily stacked towards real world sci-fi and historical or alternate histories as well. Alternate histories are cool, and speculative future, speculative past are both well within the system, and the spirit of the game, the world setting that we've set up. But the occasional dip into the more fantastical is perfectly acceptable. But it should be the table overall will be stacked towards not fantasy, but there will be some fantasy in there just because I want to throw it into.
I'm kind of digging putting down a alternate universe where we land someplace and play with Anansi the spider, or more accurately, he messes with us.
Where's my? I've lost it again. It's gone.
The sheet with the ideas.
No, I specifically am not getting into that because I know that has a potential to mess with my current
Right. We had that
the loaded game. I'm looking for the window that I had open that had the Google Doc in it, and now well, I know something else that I wanted to do real quick while I have this here. The unnamed Silurian has a image and a token now, so I can update.
I need to get you.
It's Bodhi.
Bodhi?
It's on the sheet. It's just the token
okay.
was pulled out beforehand, so it didn't auto change it.
Bodhi's
gotcha.
good. I was tempted to suggest Bob because it's just such a funny generic name for Earth, like Betty. Betty is such a generic sounding name, but I like it. Is it Bodhi or Brody?
Bodhi. B-O-D-H-I or
Are required. Okay.
H-I.
That is
yeah, Bodhi.
This you will be the third Bodhi player character that I have known.
Really?
I played one of them. I had a Bodhi that was specifically a super mutant in Fallout 2D20.
I think the only time I've ever heard the name is on a TV show. So
I personally took it from the movie Point Break, the original. But that's just me.
Well, I built a character accidentally that was a hybrid of two characters. Sean, you were just playing with in the Oops All Storytellers. I
Yeah.
kept building characters and Sean's giggling.
Yeah.
Vampire Bites is giggling.
Yeah. So yeah, the poof, Bodhi is gone from our map, and Bodhi is coming into our map. Look at that. Okay. I still need to find that the window with the Google Doc in it, because what did I do with it? Where the heck did I put it? You know what? I did put it here, didn't I? No. I know what that is. Did I close that window? I bet I just totally closed it and didn't realize it. Yeah. That's what happened. I closed it. Well, at least I know where it is. Okay. Let me grab the share button. Restricted. Anyone with the link is an editor. Copy the link. Okay, I'm done. Go over to library in our Discord. Okay. And pin. There we go. Okay. Now you guys have access to it too. So if you think of something while we're talking and just want to add it yourself, you can. But that gives the underline. So the Saga's game system itself, or the Saga's rule set itself, it is a rules light system. It is a roll low system. So you want to roll low explicitly, which means the lower die value you're using, the better off you're doing. I do have the PDF uploaded to our Roll20 system as well to share with everybody so that you can access it during the game. Roll20's PDF integration is a little janky. You'll want to turn off the thumbnails. I just find them, I mean, you can use them if you want to, but it kind of means you gotta really stretch everything else out to get everything in the visible. So I generally turn off the thumbnails page and just have a single page visit. It only does a single page at a time. You can't do scrolling. You scroll with the arrow button, or you can go directly to a page. So it is there, available in the game, the current rule set that we're using, for anybody to read at any time that they are in Roll20. Plus, you can get your own copy at DriveThruRPG. And again, this isn't sponsored. It's just a fantastic system that I love, and Dennis is a friend, so I'm happy to playtest it for him, and I was happy to playtest it with him at the time. But into the setting, the system itself, roll low. There's a difficulty scale 1 through 8. 1 is a nearly impossible. Only if you get a critical success can you do this thing, basically. Where 8 is, it's pretty trivial. Pretty much anybody should be able to do this, but might fail. And the base die size that we use is a D10, unless you're directed otherwise. So the next thing is determining which die you should be using. As you look at your character sheet and you look at your traits, your struggles, your talents, your powers, and your equipment, different pieces of them will have different phrases, like may use a D8 or may use a D6, or must use a D12, as an example. Those are mutually exclusive terms. May use a versus must use a. If you're looking over your character sheet and you find 3 things that apply to your current check, and one of them says must, that's the one you use, no matter what, even if something else is better. If you have 2 that say must, you have to choose the worst of the 2. So if you have one that says must use a D10 and one that says must use a D12, you must use the D12. Conversely, if you don't have any musts and you have all mays, you have 3 mays, you may choose whichever one of those you want to. Typically, I would go for the D6 if it's an option, because you automatically succeed a trivial, a very easy, or an easy task if you're rolling a D6, because the highest you can get is a 6. So you automatically succeed at 3 ranks of difficulty. So that's the basics of the system. And again, I mentioned earlier, I call for a check. You tell me what you're doing. I say that sounds like a check. You tell me what in your character. You either just roll a D10 because there's nothing on your character sheet that applies, or you tell me what on your character sheet applies and you use that die instead. It's very simple and very straightforward as far as your standard out of combat stuff goes. Combat is not much more difficult. A couple of it uses zones, which is where I use this other. That's why I had this out for everybody.
Okay.
Right now you can't see the zone because it's on my GM layer. So I have created this. I'm going to drop it down to the map layer so you can see it. Ba-ba-bum. Ta-da! Why are there so many? Okay, this is the bad one. This one doesn't work. I'm getting rid of it. Okay, this is the good one. So now I am on the map layer, so I can move the zone around. Let's see. It's this guy's turn right here. Right? So I will move the zone grid over centered on that character or that NPC. And then I can look at if it's in the clear zone, that is in melee range with you. If it is in the orange zone, that is in close range to you. If it's in the yellow zone, that is mid range. And if it's in the green, that is long range. There are some caveats to that. For example, large characters and colossal characters, they have reach, so their melee is the orange, their close is the yellow. So that's how ranges work. I use a square grid for the map itself so that you can measure distances as normal instead of in terms of zoning. But then if with the overlay, so with this I can say it's 75 feet from there to there, although I don't have this map is not set up with the correct dimensions. So
are you going with the grid for how many people can be in one spot then, instead of the hex? Each size person counts as a number, and each hex has certain numbers that can be in a thing that goes with sagas?
I have tried to make the... Oops, no, I want to be on this, and I want to be on the map layer. So I have tried to make a zone fit the number of medium characters appropriate to a zone. Okay. So a medium character counts as 2 slots. So there are 5 people in this zone, and that is at capacity now. So if somebody else tries to come in here and jumps on top of that guy, it's over capacity.
Gotcha.
Now, it starts to fall apart in terms of that because, one, the grid is small, is big enough that it doesn't account for small and tiny creatures, and large and colossals start to fall apart when you're using that square underlay as well. So there will be some mental math to deal with when dealing with zone capacity. Unless there's a horde, for the most part, I'm hoping we don't run into capacity. Capacity is one of my least favorite rules in this system.
Yeah, it seemed pretty clunky.
It's not bad. It's just it's a little awkward to use, and it's where the most visual memory and mental memory, or writing it down on a note card or something is going to be required in order to keep track of. So it's hard enough to keep track of for me personally when you're doing theater of the mind. Using a map is a little bit easier, but it's that again, I'm basing that on using medium-sized characters. So hopefully we don't run into zone capacity too often. But yes, it is going to be a possibility, because there are some horde characters that I've come up with. I have a Cybermite swarm and a Cybermat swarm so far that you have the potential of running into. But I wouldn't expect them anytime soon, because they're level 6 creatures.
Thank you. We'll wait.
Yeah, your character died. How'd you die? Oh, I got eaten by robot mice.
Yeah.
Okay.
We place tested them against a party of level 7. There were three PCs at level 7 that ran into 2 Cybermat hordes. They knocked it out of the park, which I expected. I intentionally made the combats a little bit easy, because I was afraid of accidentally killing them. And it was the finale episode, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to get to the end. I wrote that ending myself. I wanted to get to that ending so I could do that ending. I didn't want to kill them off early. But yeah, no, for you guys, if we end up with a TPK, we end up with a TPK. I can't control that. But anyway, so yeah, that's how I use the grid system. Normally, I will keep the grid, the hex, the zone grid up on the GM layer instead of the map layer. And you can ask to see it, or you can ask to be told. And either way works perfectly for me. If you want to see it, I will drop it down onto the map level and centered on you. If you just want to ask, like, how many zones away is this guy? And you can ask that question in 2 directions, which zones are somewhat, they're probably the most complicated bit, because how far away somebody is from you is not necessarily how far away you are from them. Right? So let's take where it's centered right now, right? It's centered on this guy right here, who happens to be a player character from a vampire game that I ran. So this character up here is 1 zone away. They are close. And actually, that's not going to be a good example. That one might be a good example. This guy up here is kind of at the border between close and mid, but they are not in close. Therefore, they are in mid. From what I would determine that ranking. Now, if we go and move this over to center on you, oh, it is the same. It does work. How did I? Okay.
Doesn't matter how you did it. Just make sure you take a picture of the settings so you can do it again.
Yeah. No, it's not a settings. I think it dealt with sizes, maybe, is where it was throwing it off before. So if I'm centered, so large size creatures take up 4 squares on the map grid, and therefore cannot be centered in the hex. Roll20 doesn't let you do that because it likes to snap to your grid.
You just hold Alt.
Does that work?
Just hold Alt while you move it.
My dude, thank you.
No problem.
I have been using Roll20 for I don't know how many years now, and I didn't realize that shortcut existed. Oh, that is a lifesaver. Thank you. Now it works perfectly. I'm good. So, tiny creature, small creature over here is in. Because this is a large, that counts as being close range because it's in the yellow. Now, if I move this down here, this guy is mid. Yeah, I'm gonna say he's in mid range to the tiny guy. So, it's the math says that it should always be the same distance between two targets, but I swear that I had something lined up where they weren't. I just don't remember what lineup it was. It might have been. Oh, that's okay. That's what it was. I need to go back to the token layer, right? So, right here, this guy is in melee with this guy, close with these three. And then, so this guy is in melee with all four of those others. Although it's at capacity, so nobody's doing any attacking. Except, from this guy's perspective, his zone isn't full. So this is another reason that zones are challenging for me. Because, how far away something is.
My personal opinion is anything on a hex grid is just annoying to deal with.
There's also that, especially for me as a computer person, digital images, even if they are a circle or a hex or an irregular polygon or any other shape, it is a rectangle. No matter what you think it is, that image is actually a rectangle. Except SVGs. SVGs are special because they're not actually images. They're just directions. But when you try to do something with an SVG as an image, it turns into a rectangle, no matter what shape it is. So I prefer to stick with squares because your pixels are roughly squares anyway.
That way when people are like, yeah, but diagonal, and you're like, yeah, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, but I'm not going to do it.
So we work as well with the zones as my brain can comprehend them, which is a zone as a range is how far away it is from you, which changes the way capacity works completely. And
I'm comfortable with you looking at the map and being like, yeah, this works or this doesn't. So
yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
I don't think we're going to use capacity. Because that's something I just realized, right? It's not fair for this guy right here to not be able to take any actions because his zone is full. But then this guy, while he's in the same zone as this guy, from his own perspective, his zone is not at capacity. His zone has a 4 count instead of a 10 count. So I mean,
my instinct is if it's at capacity centering over. Yeah, that's a little odd.
Well, I don't think it's supposed to move.
It's not.
And it's still odd, even with that. So.
But yeah, even with not moving, that's somebody at the edges.
I magically step in this little circle on the floor, and all of a sudden I can't do anything.
Yeah. So the person at the center of the zone may have to deal with capacity. People outside of that, I don't want to deal with capacity, honestly. Now, there is a feature of some creatures that force capacity, and capacity is a large part of combat because if you can't attack, or if there's a horde, or something colossal, they can push you out of your zone. So it is a big part of this. So we're gonna have to see how it works without using capacity or with using an adjusted capacity. And I will probably... Hi, Tipsy! We have a viewer, Tipsy Tiger. She was fellow GM in our Oops All GMs campaign. We're going to have to see how this plays out with zones. We will use zones for range, because that is somewhat of how it is set up for everything. So I do have the grid that we can use for those purposes. Moving on, what else is... so combat turn order is pretty straightforward. You make a reaction check. Now, are your character sheets, if you open up the character sheet, whether or not you fill out your traits, struggles, talents, etc. on your character sheet here or on a PDF is completely up to you. If it's easier for you to keep track of on a PDF or a notepad or whatever, go ahead. The character sheet is mostly here for this button, the make a check button. I did make available traits, struggles, talents, powers, and equipment so that you can reference it while you're making a check instead of referencing two different places. But if it's easier for you to reference another document or a piece of paper, go for it. There's absolutely no requirement to keep your character sheet in the system. But you do have a character so that you have a token, and you have a character so that you can make a check. Make a check is really straightforward with the system here. Input value. What activity are you making a check for? This is a brief description of what you want to do. I am making a check. I don't care what you type in there. You'll see what the flavor is here in a minute. Actually, you can see it over in the chat because if you scroll up, there's other ones. The number of dice. How you determine the number of dice? Typically, it is 1. Most of the time, it will be 1. If you spend 3 of your own effort, you can add 1 die to that. If another player has used 2 effort to help you, you can add another die to that. And those are independent of each other. So you could be up to 3 by now, or you could be at 2 if only one of them did it. If you benefit from cover or being hidden, specifically, if you're doing a stealth, you're doing a stealth check and you're already hidden for some reason, you can have that bonus die. If somebody's trying to attack you and you're hidden, you get a bonus die for your dodge or evasion. Or if you're undercover and somebody's trying to shoot at you, you get a bonus die for your cover. So there are a number of places that you could get a bonus die from. We have 4 players. So currently, the maximum number of dice you could roll on a single turn, for a single action, for a single check, is 1 for spending 3 of your own effort. 4, so that's a total of... So we're up to... That's 2, right? And then there's 4 players. So if each of the 4 players spends 2 of their own effort, you get 4 more dice. So we're up to 6. And you are being attacked at a range, and you have cover, so that's 7 dice. So you could, theoretically, in this game, have 7 dice that you're rolling. Chances of you failing a roll with 7 are very slim. And then what die type you need to use. And again, that goes back to the must use, may use scenario. If you don't have anything specific on your sheet that is suggesting which type of dice to use, you just do a D10, which is the default on the drop down. But the other ones are there for you. There's 6, 8, 10, 12. And then the difficulty. And again, the default is 5 because that's moderate difficulty. So if I don't specify a difficulty, assume that it's either a 5 or I'm not telling you for a reason. So leave it at 5 if I don't tell you the difficulty. If I tell you, oh, that's going to take a 2, go ahead and put a 2. It makes it easier to look up. If you run into a character and the first time you run into a monster and the first time you attack it, you don't know what its rating is. and so you just leave it at 5, and you end up hitting it with a 4. Well, you know that you need at least a 4. The next time you roll, you left it at 5 because you're not sure yet, and you miss, even though you rolled a 5. Then you know it's a 4. Or if you hit it again, and if you rolled a 6 and you hit it, then you know it's a 6. So then you can adjust on your own without being told. But in general, I will tell you the difficulty if it's kind of generic. There may be times like perception checks and whatnot that I don't want you to know the difficulty. However, we discovered a flaw in the rules. I don't think that was during my game, the game that I was playing or running. That was I was watching one of Dennis's other streams where I noticed where we all noticed a flaw in the rules. I asked you to make a perception check. I'm not going to tell you the difficulty because I don't want you to know whether or not you've failed your difficulty check. Yeah, Dennis was a player. Somebody else was running it, and Dennis is the one that realized this flaw. Because when you fail a check, you get an effort point back.
Oh.
So make a perception check. Okay, you don't notice anything. Do I get an effort back?
Ding ding ding.
If the answer is no, then you know that you didn't see anything because there's nothing there to see. If the answer is yes, well, then you don't know if there's something there or not. You failed the difficulty of that perception check. Whether that means you missed something or whether there was nothing there, you don't know. But not getting one back.
Not a perception. You failed the check.
I think the quick fix to that one is I roll it or I flip a coin. Yeah, you get it back. You get a point this time.
That might be what I don't know what Dennis is going to do with that, but we did.
When it's obvious.
Yeah.
You get a point, a sneaky point shows up randomly, and you're like, oh, I guess I failed a check back there somewhere.
And then that's what it looks like in chat over here. Random NPC is rolling for making a check. Random NPC rolled 7 dice and managed to get a 1. So, I have not been able to get the mechanics of Roll20 to work in my favor, to actually compare the roll result with the difficulty to produce the success or not success result on screen. So I have this generic text that shows up under any circumstance that simply states, if the result is less than or equal to the difficulty, the check is successful. Otherwise, the check fails. And I will update that with, if you failed this check, don't forget to include your effort. Because, we like getting effort back, because effort is important. So that's the basics of the game. Everything else is pretty much RP. As far as characters, I have not reviewed characters yet. So let's take a look at Balix.
Awesome.
Please do, because my equipment, I believe it works with my talent, because my equipment, one of my equipment's the laser carbine. It says requires uncommon weapon training talent for laser carbine.
Yes.
And I believe that equates to Centauran marksman, parentheses, weapon projectile, weapon training projectile. I just saw that on the markdown page.
Yes.
And that felt the equivalent of what that other thing was referencing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
They wake up one morning to find Betty has gleefully taken apart and is now trying to put it back together. I'm so sorry.
This is where we can start to discuss amongst ourselves and with the audience the various rules and what different types of features of your character, are in general. So all characters start the game with 2 or 3 traits and an equal number of struggles. Traits are something innate to your character as an entity. whether they're unique to your character as a Sontaran, an Ood, a Silurian, a human, or whether they're unique to your character because of personality. That's up to you. So traits are just something that are innate, part of your being. They don't increase or decrease over time. They just are. In general, they give you the clause for actions may use. So, for example, our Sontaran has a strategist's mind, which is a flavor of the built-in, the core rules trait, sure-footed. The affected checks, so if he's making a planning check or a tactical movement check, he may use a D8. Bred for warfare, you possess a natural ability to analyze and understand battle tactics. Planning and tactical movement checks you make may use a D8. So when we're looking at the zones, for example, Balix here is going to be able to use a D8 to make any checks for calculating where the best strategic advancement is for themselves. And where to move on the map for the best tactical advantage. That's a very Sontaran thing to do. We also have the trait of battle-hardened physique, which is, I think, a duplicate of, yes, thick skin, which gives you extra health for each level. No, just one base. It's not per level. Sorry. It's just a base extra 1 hit point. Sagas is a potentially deadly game for characters and monsters alike. All damage is done one hit point at a time, regardless of weapon, mostly. Sometimes a weapon can do 2 or 3 points of damage. Criticals will increase your... If you roll a 1 on your attack, for example, you get 2 points of damage. If you're performing a combo, you get an extra point of damage instead of an extra die in combat. So there are other ways of doing more than 1 point of damage, but for the most part, it's 1 point of damage at a time. That doesn't sound like much until you realize that starting characters at level 1 have 2 hit points.
Occasionally 3 if you are.
If you have thick skin, you get a third one.
But that's
So
not a lot.
3 hits and you're out, right? Except
Stand behind
Please
Santara.
try.
Got it.
except there is a caveat there as well. Once you get to 0 hit points, you are essentially spending effort as hit points after that. So you are still standing, you are still going, but then you lose another effort if you take another hit. And then so in reality, even though you have 3 hit points, you have 5 Balix if you haven't spent any effort yet.
Yeah, I wanted to be chunky. I wanted to be...
Yeah. If you have spent effort, then you have your health plus whatever effort you have left.
Yeah.
But so your total hit point pool in terms is your current health plus your current effort at any given moment. So even though health of 2 can be a scary place when things are doing 1, 2, or 3 hit points at a time, you still have the fallback of your effort after that. And then but struggles are also things that are just innate things about yourself, but instead of making your life easier, they make your life harder. And it's a 1-for-1 traits to struggles. It's similar in other systems to a merits and flaws system. So Balix, being a Sontaran, has clone uniformity. So when pressed to be an individual or pressed to be creative, you must use a D12. So that makes, now here's a problem, right? And this is a little bit of this that you might want to tweak your character a little bit, Adam, because if your tactical planning requires any creativity in motion, you're not getting that D8. You're using that D12.
Yeah.
Now, if the tactical
Yeah,
planning
it's
very straightforward, you don't have to worry about it. You get the D8, not a problem.
But then how is it tactical? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm gonna look
Yeah.
into that.
So
You could
that
just
that
do like artistic creativity if that's what you're going for.
No, but that's what I'm
It's-
bad at.
yeah.
Yeah, so you
no.
could specify you get the D12 with artistic creativity instead of.
Well, yeah. So we can address, since clone uniformity is a custom made rather than a straight from the book, we can adjust exactly what that means to make sense for the character as well as balanced with the rest of the character's abilities. A probic vent. All Sontarans have a probic vent in the back of their uniform, which is where they're fed. It's actually in the back of their head, but it's through their uniform as well. And if they get smacked in that, they get knocked out. Now, rather than going that directly with a instant knockout for a probic vent attack, or in some episodes of Doctor Who, an instant kill, we went for your probic vent, located at the back of your neck, is a vital organ, but also a well-known weak point. You must use a D12 for defense checks when an attack specifically targets your probic vent, making it more likely to be hit. It's still only going to do the 1 point of damage to you, so it's not going to be a knockout. But it's harder to defend because it is in the back of your neck. But Sontarans have a principle that they always must face their enemies in battle because they don't want their probic vent being hit. So it's somewhat intentional on the part of Sontarans in general that it is in their front is well armored and their back is unprotected, because if you're hit in the back, you deserve it, because that means you're running away as a coward. That is the basic philosophy of the Sontarans. So that's why it's in the back of the neck, and that's why it's so damaging. So if somebody knows that you have a probic vent and decides to explicitly target that, you are rolling a d12 for the avoid or defense. However, the rest of the time, you get your standard die. You have composed.
Ignore the top. So the top, I don't know if I'm going to take the top talent or the top trait, because they're both almost one and the same. I don't know which one I'm going with yet.
Okay. So you get a total of 3 talents or powers. And yeah, as you mentioned, that the talent and the trait are there is definite overlap. I wouldn't say they're the same, but there's definitive overlap. And you might want to address that. Yes, I agree completely. Sontaran marksmanship. At rank 1, you get nothing special from it, except it allows you to use your Sontaran laser carbine. At rank 2, nothing extra happens. At rank 3, instead of a D10, you can start using a D8. And then all the way at rank 6, really? That feels wrong. But, oh well. At rank 6, you can start using a D6. I might have to double check that for balance. I'm not sure that feels underpowered to me.
Loosey goosey. We'll deal with whatever.
Yeah. Sontaran toughness is the tough talent, which is another way to increase your health a little extra. At rank 1, you get nothing special, but right away at rank 2, you get another hit point, and that increases. You get 1 per 2 ranks in toughness. No powers at this time. Powers in sagas tend to be hyperscience, magical, fantastical, non-real world explainable things. I think as someone who primarily plays non-D&D and non-fantasy games, I personally don't have a separation between talents and powers. There are some rules differences that I personally ignore because I play in mostly high-tech settings in other games, and most of the games that I will be playing in sagas are similarly based in a science fiction, science fantasy type realm, where you don't need some somatic verbal material component to cast a spell, because you're not casting a spell, you're shooting a laser gun. Right?
The somatic components have been assembled beforehand.
You know, you did plenty of cursing while you were building the gun. You don't need to curse when you're firing. So for my games, anything that is listed as a power can be treated as a talent, unless you're explicitly going for a magical or mystical feel, in which case using that added flavor of a power is fantastic, and I like it. So I like that it's separate in the system itself. In my games being set primarily in science fiction and science fantasy, and things are explainable by technobabble, I don't need powers and talents to be separate. I like that they are in the rules, but in my games I don't need them to be. So feel free to just hand wave away anything in the rule set where it says powers. I'm jumping down through it, the PDF, so I can read it directly. Powers work exactly like talents. That's where my version of the rules stops. The difference is that powers don't exist in the modern world. They could be superpowers, magical abilities, cybernetic augmentations, etc. Unless otherwise stated, a power requires a combat action to use. Okay, I think I've never read that. I've never used that. I don't know if that's new to 0.6 or if that is just something I kept on overlooking.
Good to know. Okay.
Yeah, so powers are in combat only, apparently, except unless the power itself says it's not. So don't forget, if you're writing your own power, don't forget to include it doesn't need to be in combat. Unless it's a combat specific thing, in which case go for it. All powers that target another creature or object require the caster to see the target. That's fair, and I can stick with that. You know, whether it's a power or a target, whether it's a talent or a power, I think that still those general rules probably apply. It's this next part, casting components. When you learn a power for the first time, you must pick 2 of the 3 below requirements to use all powers. Once you pick the requirements, they cannot be changed without GM permission. Speaking, pick a word like go-go gadget, or fireball, or Hadouken, or whatever. For each individual power, you can pick separate words, or you can have one trigger word that does it all for everything. Doesn't matter. Your movement, you must move both arms and hands in a certain way to cast each power, like Spider-Man's web shooting gesture. Wah! You may pick what movement is required for each power. Object, you must hold a specific kind of object to use each power, like Doctor Strange's sling ring. You may pick which object is required for each power. This can be a single object for all powers or a different object for each one. So for that, something else we could do instead of having the laser carbine as an equipment, it can be an upgradable power. You can define it as the power. It is the object itself. The carbine is the object. The power is death ray, or ballistic ray, or whatever, laser beam. And then that way you could have its power increased by rank, by selecting the laser carbine as a power instead of as an equipment. So that is one way that you could use it as a power. Also, if it is a power, you don't need a separate talent to use it. Just a thought.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's a definite possibility. Using the powers rules as written, your blaster could be a power rather than an equipment. We can
Consolidation is good.
I'm gonna run that through the thought processes a little bit offline, but I'm pretty sure we can do that. I'll need to come up with ranks, or you can come up with ranks based on the rules in the system. Then you have a movement, pulling the trigger. You have an object, the blaster itself. So yeah, I think we could absolutely do it. It's just
That
coming
makes
up with the
sense.
right ranks and abilities at each rank for that as a power. But yeah, and then you wouldn't need a separate talent to use it. I like that. Or I might be breaking the rules, but that's part of what playtesting is all about. I will also discuss that with Dennis. Because that might be a loophole in the rules that might need to be addressed in the system itself. Right, because weapons are equipment, unless the weapon is a ray gun, in which case it can be a power. I don't know. I mean, it fits the wording. It fits. We're going to use it. We just have to come up with the ranks, because it does fit the wording of the rules, and we'll see how that balances out. But I think it's a loophole. We can come back to it. But yeah, we've got talents and powers. We have traits and struggles, and then we have equipment, which is it's not explicitly discussed in the rules, but equipment can be weapons, or anything that provides a rules mechanical advantage, or is a somewhat specialized piece of equipment. A standard flashlight is not a piece of equipment. A flashlight that never runs out of batteries is a piece of equipment. A walkie-talkie is a piece of equipment because that is covered. It's covered in here as a communication device. Cell phone, voice crystal, hologram collars, whatever. Something that allows communication over long distances.
Solo cups and string.
I wouldn't call that a long distance. That's not equipment. You can have that in your pack at any time. Which is the second part of what I was going to say.
String that are a power, and the power are the object, and the power is you can talk to people at long range.
I just
spray pan.
I just wouldn't call the
Solo cups of sending.
Yeah.
It works because we believe it does.
I wouldn't.
Everybody else in the party is looking at you, going, "Yeah, just don't mind her. She's just, the cup's not really responding. She just thinks it is. Just let her be."
Just shh, leave Betty alone. Betty's in Betty. Though now I want to create a power. I don't know what it would be, but the vocal component is heavens to Betsy.
Yes, I like that. So for my games, any kind of equipment that makes sense for your character to have, that isn't a mechanical advantage or a special item, you just have. Right? I think the equipment rules in Sagas is where I would probably do the most work, because it doesn't cover a bedroll, it doesn't cover a backpack, it doesn't cover gear in general. It covers some specific gear like climbing gear. You can't have that unless you've spent one of your equipment slots. You can't have armor unless you've spent one of your equipment slots. You can't have a weapon unless you've spent one of your equipment slots. And another factor that I don't like personally is that single-use items that have a mechanical effect are just as costly as something that is permanent. That, to me, no. That's not fair. Even though I understand somewhat of the balance of it, in the cases where I've noticed that, like the healing device, The healing device is a single use item that removes a single wound. It does not heal hit points. It only heals wounds, which is something else that we'll talk about in combat that I forgot to mention. But wounds are separate from hit points.
Gotcha.
And the healing device in the book covers healing a wound specifically. You know, but it's only a single use item. That feels a little unbalanced, unfairly towards the healing device to be a single use item compared to a communication device that let a cell phone and a single use healing spell are the same value as a rocket launcher. All three of them have the same intrinsic value in terms of the game. To me, that's a little unbalanced. Also, limiting a character to 2 pieces of equipment. When you talk about equipment as being a game mechanic affecting item, limiting it to 2 is okay. I think that's where we're fine. But then you have other things like, do you have rope? It doesn't provide a mechanical advantage, but there's climbing gear is listed. There's a lot of gray area. In general, the character sheet does not have a backpack section or a gear or a stowed item section. So I am not going to say, is it on your character sheet? If you say I pull out a penknife. Penknife can't be used in combat. It doesn't provide a mechanical thing, but you need to cut a rope and you have a penknife. Yeah, cut the rope. Sure. You can kind of MacGuffin your own stuff that doesn't have mechanical advantages. You just have it on your person and it's fine. We can also this is Doctor Who, we can kind of hand wave the pockets of holding as well. If you happen to realize that you need something during the course of an adventure and it isn't a equipment, yes, you have it. You have access to it. I don't care. I'm not going to be slowed down by making people spend money on things. I'm not going to be slowed down by keeping track of weight and encumbrance. That's not part of the system, and I'm not going to include it for realism. It's not part of the system, and it's not part of the Doctor Who universe.
Makes sense.
So I see no reason to. If you decide to say that I have a flashlight that I just found in my pocket, okay, go for it. You don't have to worry about the dark for this. Your batteries are low though, so it's a dim light, and it'll run out by the end of the session. You have to pick one up. You'll have to pick up another one sometime soon. Stuff like that.
Those Duracell.
Yeah. So stuff like that, I'm fine with just having access to. But again, if it's mechanically significant, it goes in the equipment section of your character sheet, and there, if you don't have it, you don't have it. That being said, without having any money, and advancement being not based on any kind of experience points or improvement points or anything like that, but periodic. It's more milestone based. And in a one-shot setting, it's going to be every few adventures, more or less, depending on how fast we think we need to advance to thoroughly test the system. I think there should probably be significant RP rewards for the game, so that you as a player get something out of it for your character, and there will be occasional equipment awards, so that your character has a way to grow beyond just ranking up every few sessions.
Cool.
That covers the basics of it, and that covers Balix, at least for now. We will figure out some other stuff there. Let's look at Betty.
Okay.
Betty is big.
Yup.
So Betty is not size large, but Betty does take up a capacity of 4, which is another reason that I'm not dealing with capacity, because that throws that out the window too. But the bulk and the size does say that Betty cannot be forcibly moved by anything smaller. So if a small creature is trying to push her away, Betty will just stand there.
Nothing happens.
Betty also has thick skin, which is that one extra hit point at the gate. So Betty is also a 3/2. Anarchist is a struggle. When the boss says, do this, Betty
Explain.
must no, not even that. Betty must roll a d12. If you fail that check, you simply refuse, no matter the reasons. They told you to do it, therefore you're not going to if you fail that check.
They say the sky is blue, it is green.
There are 4 lights. Star Trek reference. Also clumsy. So if you happen to get into combat and miss, you hit a nearby object, one that is not currently in possession of a PC or NPC.
With that pipe wrench?
Possibly.
Ow.
Yeah, no, she swings, and if I miss the roll, if I fail the roll, she hits and probably breaks something else in the near vicinity.
I mean, unless you just tapped it with that pipe wrench, I don't think probably belongs before breaks, but yeah.
It's a ball in a china shop.
Well, if there's no china for you to smash with your wrench, you're going to hit the floor, which might not break.
And then the floor breaks, and combat gets very interesting.
As far as talents goes, Betty is mechanically inclined, who has crafting of a sort that we have not quite determined yet.
I'm open for help on that one. I'm trying to think of craft skills, mechanical professions that would lead her to be able to vaguely build a time machine
On accident.
based on Apple device by accident.
Tinkering.
I am open to suggestions.
Quantum mechanics.
That could be might just go with that.
Well,
Really.
with quantum mechanics as your crafting, I would end up allowing a roll to fix your machine, which would take away half the fun of the game.
Nope.
This is an accidental, so it's something in that general realm that accidentally breached into quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
But so some examples of crafting is metalsmithing, carpentry, cooking, potion making, building, electronics, tailoring, generic stuff like that. So this is we were thinking electronics wasn't quite right. It's more machinery.
Yeah. Machine. She
Robotics.
building a car. Maybe robotics.
What? The scrap pieces that you took to put into whatever machine you were making definitely came off of like a DeLorean, and you just didn't know that it was a DeLorean.
I stole this cool flashy thing out of the back of a DeLorean.
This looks like the right part. I'm gonna try this.
There's a very pissed off old dude somewhere. I am very happy with that being canon, by the way. I am totes down with that. Completely happy. I don't know what it does. I picked it up out of the back of this silver car.
It looked like the right part.
But so I'm not going to require a explicit definition of crafting. We understand the Intent.
Yeah.
So as long as we understand the intent, you know when you need to make the checks, which whether or not you're allowed to use the reference die or not. Because we understand the intent. If you try to sew something, I'm going to say no. That's a D10. And
no,
you need you need the tools.
paladin.
Yeah. If you want to try sewing something, no, you need the tools. You don't have them, and you need the skill, yeah, which or the talent, which you don't have.
Nope. Nope.
So,
Not happening.
mechanic is a separate skill, which is explicitly for vehicles.
Yep.
Which, if your makeshift time vortex thing breaks down as far as its motion through space, you can fix it. You can use a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't touch the.
The thing that makes
you
it
can't
so
touch the
regularly-
randomizer. You can't touch the randomizer.
I can change the oil. I can fix the exhaust system.
And you are a wrestler. So as you mentioned, you like to hug people, or
Until
sit
they
on
stop.
or sit on them.
How long are you going to stay there? Until you just make better decisions. Yeah, hug them until they stop.
For equipment, we have crafting tools and lock repair tools.
Totally for repairing. Not for fixing. Yep. I mean, how do you think she got into the DeLorean?
Okay. So I think that makes Betty done. Next up is I put them in. I'm mad at myself now. They were in alphabetical order, and I changed that. Anyway, we're on to Bodhi.
No, I'm kidding.
I had no idea what I was supposed to be picking for level 1, so I literally just took one of everything.
Okay.
Except
It's
equipment.
Yep. It's 2 traits, 2 struggles,
Okay.
2 equipment, 3 talents, powers.
Oh wow! So I got lots more stuff to choose.
Not talents
Gotcha.
and powers, talents and or powers. So a total of 3 from the talent and the power section.
So 2 of everything except 3 with the combination talent
Yep.
power. Gotcha.
So we have a prehensile tail, which is a little unique to Silurians.
little bit.
I don't
It also
recall.
says I can't really do anything with it, so yes and no. It claims to be prehensile,
No,
but
you can. It's not that you can't do anything with it. It's you can't use it to hold weapons unless you have a talent with that weapon. So you could, if you had, for example, if you had martial arts, you could tail whip somebody because that makes your body a weapon.
gotcha.
If you had use common, I forget exactly what the talents are for weapons right now. There we go. Weapon training improvised. Let's say you have the talent weapon training improvised. Then your tail could pick up a club just as easily as your hand could and swing it in combat just as easily as your hand could, because you and your tail are one. Your tail is just an extension of you. It's part of your body. It's just it's there. It's just another arm, as far as you're concerned. You obviously you know it's a tail, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Prehensile tail.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes, it's a prehensile tail. It is anything you can do with your hands, you can do with your tail, basically. It is basically what that means.
I'm being an ass.
So what it means where you cannot wield weapons with it unless you have a trait that allows you to, not specifically allows you to wield it with your tail, but allows you to wield a weapon in general.
Gotcha.
Because, yeah, you can't just pick up a club unless you know how to use a club.
You can, you just don't get very far with it.
Yeah.
It's
It can be in your hand. Whether you are successful with it is another matter.
so
But
that's
tactics.
that. So combat is one scenario where the default is not a D10, it's a D12.
Right. Okay.
unless you have training with a weapon and you have that weapon, you are using a D12. Is basically the way it works.
Cool. That makes sense.
And that includes your hands, or your tail in that case, Bodhi. So
I literally just took it because lizard.
Yeah.
So
which most Solarians don't have tails. Some may. Theirs is more a prehensile tongue. From the modern series, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not about to describe
tongue
giant
wag.
tongue every episode, so
Sorry.
I mean, there's a reason Madame Vostron and
That's right. Yeah.
Anyways, the matching struggle being naive. So some things that are considered common knowledge, you just don't have awareness of. So any check that you need to make to recall knowledge about the world around you, you must use a D12, which can come up a lot, I'm sure.
probably.
And then for your first talent and your first power, you are a disease doctor. You can more easily than most identify diseases. You get a D8 currently, and then it ranks up with treat at rank 2, identify being a D6 at 3, and treat being a D6 at rank 4. And then heal is the other power you've chosen for now, and it is like a cleric's heal spell, basically. By spending 3 effort as your action, you can restore 1 health to a creature who is in melee. At rank 2, you only have to spend 2 effort. At rank 3, you can spend 2 effort and either restore 1 health or reduce the severity of a wound. And that's all in melee range. At rank 4, you can extend that out with, a blowgun of healing out to close range. At rank 5...
We need to go to a planet with healing dart frogs.
At rank 5, instead of spending 2 effort for any of the above, you only have to spend 1 effort. By the time you get to rank 6 in this power, when you reduce a wound severity by 1, you also get a free 1 health restoration to that wounded creature. So you can do both, basically. I think that one's poorly worded. And at rank 8, so it skips rank 7, but at rank 8, you can heal all creatures in melee or a single target in close range. That's...
Isn't melee and close the same thing?
No. So
Close is after melee.
yes. So it's melee is same zone, close is the next zone out, and then mid, and then long. But the problem that I have with rank 8 is that you can already target a single target in close range, and that happens at rank 4.
Mm.
So this is only adding everybody in melee.
I mean, that's probably fine too. That's a hell of an upgrade. I'm not sure why, unless they deliberately put that there to make sure that you realized it was melee and not close.
Yeah.
Probably why they added it, but I don't know that it's necessary.
Yeah, but the other, I mean, I have most of my healers would be happy to read that at face value, by the way. Because most of my healers are the sort that will heal enemies as well, sometimes. Because at face value, heal can affect all creatures in melee or a single target.
Does say can.
Yes, it can do this or it can do this.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Yep. The effectiveness of the can gets eliminated by the or.
And it doesn't say may, it says can.
Won't that be fun if, okay, my party's healed. Oh, shoot, so's everybody else.
Well, I mean, the good news is it's only 1 hit point. Or 1 wound, or
I mean,
severity
it's always
of a
fun to
wound.
have a
Yeah.
chaos medic in a PvP game that's just running around healing
Yeah.
everyone.
In
So-
first edition Dungeons and Dragons, I had a druid. Was actually a druid. We were playing an epic level campaign, which didn't the concept, the name didn't exist in first edition. It was just ungodly. It was just basically a god tier, who was 12/12 druid cleric, and they were true neutral. They were not with either part. They were not. They traveled with a party. My fellow players hated this character. I ended up retiring this character from PC world and made them an NPC, where it makes much more sense because it's a bad PC. I'm talking first edition. I'm talking I was a teenager. A little bit forgiven maybe because it was the 80s. But yeah, my character would be fighting on the side of whichever side was less powerful, and would switch in the middle of combat if necessary.
He's tanking. They're going down. Oh, what's our druid doing? No, sit on the druid.
Yeah.
I think you're just describing underdog.
Yeah, the character would, if you were facing it's a big level party, so facing a horde of kobolds isn't necessarily overwhelming odds, but they have the chance to overrun you because there's so many of them, even if you can take out 2 or 3 per punch. So there's a whole horde of them. So the druid is on your side for now. And then you whittle them down and whittle them down and whittle them down, and then the druid starts fighting you. My fellow players hated that. But anyway.
I can imagine that.
And after combat, most of my medics, regardless of system, will treat all injured parties that are still alive, regardless of which side they were on. So, that my medics would read that and say, I affect all creatures in melee. Excellent.
Oh, good.
And now that is melee as in the same zone as you, not melee as in all participants in the combat. But anyway, and then you can, again, you can pick from the book for one additional talent or power. You can reassess your. I mean,
Yeah, I'll go.
You don't have to worry about that the wording of heal until you get to rank 8, and by then we'll probably have a new rule set that hopefully will clarify that better. Because I think I'm going to mention that to Dennis. To see if the intent is to see. Yes. My very pedantic brain says no. It says what it says. Sorry. But I don't think that's the intent, and I do care about intent as much as verbiage, equally. But yeah, you can address those as we go through. 7 to 10. Yeah, we're almost at time. Let's look at beta real quick. Then you can also build your own. Sorry, using the rules in the system. I actually use AI to help me generate stuff for sagas. Where I have an idea, I have a general concept, I feed it the rules by copying them out of the book, putting it in my session, and saying, using these rules, I want to create a thing that does this. Can you help me create balance? Now, I will spend hours on a single thing by going back and forth with ChatGPT to verify that it hasn't done any hallucinations, because AI hallucinations are very real, where it just starts deciding to randomly add things that just aren't true. If there's any math involved, I will manually edit the math because ChatGPT cannot do math. So there are a lot of caveats to using the AI, but it does help overall if you're having trouble coming up with your own set of ranks for a given ability of any sort. And I can help with that too, partially by using, I mean, that's how I came up with that entire list of Sontaran and Ood things, which brings us to the beta, the Ood, who has an emotional sensitivity as a trait. Heightened sense of sensitivity to emotions allows you to understand and empathize with others more easily. You may use a D8 for understanding and empathizing. The part of the telepathic network.
I have a question about that.
Yep.
Could I use that for detecting lies, or would that have to be
Emotional
something else?
sensitivity? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You're trying to understand an emotion, right? And I will give the additional. You also have the extra traits of telepathic network and thought sense. They kind of, to me, it all absolutely fits together.
Okay.
Yeah, it absolutely all fits together for me very well to say, yeah, you can use that either as a combination of the way they work together and understanding, or just straight up of the, it fits within the wording of the trait.
Right on.
Yeah. Telepathic network. So you are a non-verbal Ood.
Yeah. I put the telepathy for like, I was trying to figure out how to put it in the talents versus the traits. So I just put it all into the talent / power, I guess. And I just figured the rank 1 would just be like basic communication. Like just to cover like just, thoughts. Obviously I couldn't communicate with a robot or anything.
Right.
But like basic just talking brain to brain.
Yes.
And then you can level it up to translate or whatever.
Yep. That all works together well. Yes. Although, okay, 2. You have 2 powers. And no equipment yet. So we're still partial here.
I was thinking, didn't know, I was looking for some kind of for equipment. I was thinking about some kind of like disguise so we can like travel through time and not freak people out. I don't know, some kind
and then you realize you're traveling with a lizard and a potato. So
yeah, and I was like, maybe we're just gonna freak everyone out regardless. So yeah, I didn't really know what to do for equipment after that.
Yeah, that was something that we kind of even I was struggling with, and even with ChatGPT's help, is coming up with equipment for an Ood specific that are kind of Ood specific. So even being pacifistic though, the fact that you can effectively take a wound of enraged state and become a red eye. You might consider just taking a weapon of some sort, just as something that comes that or an addition, I don't know about equipment, but an additional power of being able to use that telepathy as a weapon.
I was thinking of some kind of like blast or like even like a basic like a distract, like just to like point them in a different direction. Like definitely I want to be able to use my telepathy in combat in some way.
Yeah, so we'll probably need to come up with a secondary power that deals with telepathy as a combat move. I think that fits well. And it's something that you wouldn't normally use unless you get triggered into your enraged state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which leads us to emotional vulnerability, which has a D12 for maintaining your composure and resisting psychic manipulation in non-combat states.
Should I add that?
Well, it's up in the affected checks section.
Okay.
You are illicit
non-combat
Hulk.
checks. Yeah. You're all calm and hey, everything's chill. People, calm down. Love everybody. Do what Betsy's doing. Hug each other. That's great. Until somebody pisses you off, and then you start blasting. And then I started
So I lose
blasting.
control.
The problem is with an enraged state, you might end up,
Friendly fire, but you still get hurt.
attacking other
Feel free to knock me
people.
unconscious.
Yeah, it's
Now
similar.
Ben has to hug the ood.
It's kind of similar to, and actually, with the Betsy mentality and the hug, it's not an attack. It's I think that calming state will aid the ood in regaining control. So I think that is actually a good tactic to work with.
The
Like
ood
my
gets
handler.
enraged. They just start walking around handing out hair tonic.
No, the ood loses it. Somebody hurts the ood loses it. Betty's just like, no, come here. I got you. I'm gonna put it down so they can't hit you anymore.
So I will also quickly introduce you to a potential NPC that you may end up meeting or seeing, and that is Kai Nightwalker. Tipsy, if you're still in chat, you know Kai. I'm going to make that token big enough to see. So Kai is the character that I had. And why did I put that on? Because I'm a dunderhead. Token weird. Thank you. So
Kai's a
Kai is a vampire. Kai was my character in Oops All GMs. And as a reward for completing the Oops All GMs, all the PCs, including the PC that was an NPC at the time, received a Vortex Manipulator. And then, as this is my game, I also gave them the ability to use the Vortex Manipulator as a talent. So Kai can slip in and out of time at Kai's preference. So Kai may make occasional appearances. Kai is a vampire, but Kai is a vampire with morals. Kai has no trouble killing enemies, but does not feed on people because the bite of a vampire causes the target to receive a vampirism struggle and turn into a vampire, basically.
You use a straw.
That might work.
A vampire character that did that? Nope.
Hello, we are so doomed. We're not so doomed. Don't worry. But thank you. Welcome to the chat. We're just about wrapping up, and I don't have my stream set up to raid to anybody, so I might look and see who's on and suggest a place to go. But we are ending our session 0 shortly. But welcome in, and good to have you here. So Kai, yeah, he's good. He's a much higher level, so he's going to be more MacGuffin or Deus Ex Machina type NPC that you may run into on occasion. Kai may also be a stand-in for the Doctor at times where I don't feel like introducing the Doctor, but you need that kind of a MacGuffin. So that's who Kai is. Kai's. I like my Kai. Kai is awesome. So I brought him in, even though they're much too high level. Kai's pronouns are he, they, because I switch back and forth often. I should probably make my own pronouns they, he at this point, because I prefer they, them, but I still use he for myself sometimes without thinking about it, so I don't care. But anyway, that's our session 0. The notes have been shared in our Discord. I'm going to exit my stream from visibility so that I can look at who's online, and I might be able to do a raid if anybody I know and love is streaming. You know what? I am going to raid us over to Saltiest Bun. A friend of the variety streamer community. Saltiest Bun is a variety streamer who does mostly art streams and very chill streams. And it looks like she's doing some interesting pixel art, or that's not pixel art right now. So that's even, I love pixel art to a degree, but it's not my favorite. So I also prefer this other. Where is my chat? Sorry. I'm also looking at OBS, which has changed so much since the last time I was doing things. Yay. Okay. That is settings. That's not what I want. Settings didn't change. Tools. No. Profile docs. Twitch activity. Nope.
Well,
Docs. Where's stats, chat. That's where I can type in raid. So okay, we are gonna go raid over to Saltiest Bun because she is a sweetheart and she's doing some sexy looking art right now. Cartoonish but cute, and it's probably a very chill stream. Sexy's awesome. Sexy. Salty is awesome. Wow,
Sexy is
where's
also awesome.
yeah, that's true.
I mean, yes, you're not wrong, sweetie. But
I don't have a raid command because I am not brand new to streaming, but I'm brand new to being back to streaming, I should say. I typically, it's been almost a year since I've streamed regularly, and I don't have bots set up and stuff like that. So next session, we will also talk about channel point rewards for the audience, because there are some that will affect the game. So we do need to talk about that next session. Hopefully somebody reminds me.
Hope you me out.
Saltiest.
Does that wrap us up?
Yes.
Okay.
Saltiest Bun. Okay, the raid is triggered and it will start. And good night, everybody. I'll see you all next week. We are counting out the time. 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay, we are rated out.
Okay.
Oh,
Gotcha. I didn't quite understand how that works.
Yep. We are not streaming now. We are rated out.
Okay.
Jackie, welcome in. How's your stream?
So what?
I'm also listening to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I was confused. Your voice did some weird
All the
things
noises.
there for a second.
Nope, I'm listening to the stream now so that I can actually hear what she's saying. But
Oh. Well, everybody, I had a good time. Glad to meet everyone. I'm enjoying
Yeah.
the connections we've started to put together, like Hug the Ood if it gets mentally hulkish, and, you know, Secret Travel Companion that she finds out later is more than meets the eye once they get out into the wilds of space.
I think we're still live, by the way,
um,
even though you rated us over.
how does that? I will mute us so that we are definitively not talking. I will put us on the ending.
Send me over.
Okay.
Yeah, it sent me over too, but I backed up to make